As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. If you guys remember a story last week about the Vision Fund, you guys remember that? It was a blockchain gaming only fund. This week, there's two stories. The first is VC fund NFX launches crypto gaming seed fund. So NFX is a relatively large venture fund. They raised a $450 million round or fund to invest in seed stage companies. And 20 million of that, they're making available for what they call fasts, funds that basically they can deploy within 9 days. I'll just read it. It says, apply for pre-seed and seed funding, $500K to $2 million, and get a decision inside of 9 days. So of their $450 million fund, they're dedicating 20 million of this. And this is for companies doing crypto gaming type projects. Next to this, there was also an announcement about Bitcraft. Everyone knows Bitcraft. They raised $75 million token fund for blockchain game investments. So they're going to put that money into blockchain gaming investments, and they hired someone to lead that effort specifically. But it's stage agnostic. They're going to invest in pre-seed up to later stage, and they can invest in tokens and equity. So it's all about blockchain gaming. Between these two announcements and what we saw last week, we now have 3 essentially dedicated funds to this. Curious to get your thoughts in terms of, where does everyone see blockchain gaming going? Is there room for all this venture money? Are we going to see a bit of a bubble there? Just curious, or is all the excitement totally legitimate, not overhyped? We may see 10 more funds. What is everyone's crystal ball telling them? Jimmy or Jeff?
I think the answer is probably yes to a lot of the questions you asked. This is clearly blockchain gaming is a massive trend that's here to stay. We've talked about it a number of times kind of on this podcast. With that being said, I do think when you start to have a lot of these dedicated venture funds chasing it, you tend to potentially get frothy valuations and maybe early rounds at valuations that don't really stand up to muster down the road. So I think that's what's happening here. I'm not altogether sure why these funds have to be dedicated blockchain gaming funds, why they can't just be gaming funds and then allocate a portion of their capital to blockchain games. Maybe the simplest answer is that it's easier for them to go to LPs and raise funds because blockchain gaming is hot. I imagine we saw probably a very similar theme happening with esports 3-4 years ago, where rather than just raising a gaming fund, it was easy to say, oh, we're an esports specific fund, because that was sort of the buzzword du jour at the time. And a lot of those investments, went one way or the other. Some probably fizzled out. So it'll be interesting to see where this ends up. I think, personally, I probably have been a little too skeptical on blockchain gaming, and maybe I need to do a little bit more work, because this is clearly, a trend that's here to stay. I think that the criticism I've had of a lot of the investments so far is that they seem to put the blockchain piece really first and center and kind of ignore the gaming part, where I think it has to really be the opposite for any of these to be successful, where it has to be gaming first, and then the blockchain is just sort of a mechanic and part of it. But I definitely need to do more to learn about this, because it's massive and it's here to stay.
Yeah, I would add to that, where I think it just seems like a lot of money being raised, and I don't know if the opportunities available are going to pass all the scrutiny and due diligence required for the investment. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the money goes unspent. Not to say that it's not a worthwhile endeavor or pursuit. I just don't know enough about the available opportunities for these investments, where they're going to land, if the pool is that large yet, and enough to meet the demand, I think, in the hype of these investors.
It's one of these things where I think two things will inevitably happen. One, everyone and their dog, next week's going to have a blockchain gaming company. It's just inevitable. Like every deck I'm going to see for the next 2 months is going to be like blockchain gaming filled. So I think that for sure happens. The other thing is the few companies that actually are legitimate and have a product and a team, and all of a sudden now you have 3 relatively large pools of money all competing for a few decent deals in a very young space. And to Jeff's point, you get valuations that start to creep up there. You get competition for these deals, and you start seeing money going in at huge valuations. I think it's great to see Bitcraft in here. There's no better signal in the industry for like investments to stay away from. So it's a fantastic like industry signal to have them in that space. But I believe that, and maybe you guys think this is crazy, we're going to see 10 more funds like this. This is just the beginning. And it's because there's truly that, I think, size of potential in the space. But in the early days, it's going to be a lot of noise. So whether these early funds succeed or not with such a limited scope, probably not. But long term, definitely huge value in the space. I don't know if anyone sees that differently or anyone in the chat sees that differently, but I read a tweet, and Jeff, maybe to your point, I read a tweet somewhere that someone said that they thought the gateway to crypto was going to be wallets, right? People having wallets for and operating them like bank accounts, right? Like as a substitute to your bank account. And they said, now I believe, and I'm paraphrasing. Now I believe that the gateway to crypto is actually through gaming, and that gaming is the gateway drug, the entry point where people get familiar with crypto. And so it'll be interesting to see if that thesis pans out, right? Where the games are the gateway, but the big picture is over time. This is all crypto in the back end. So